Once again, happy Friday, everybody. Wow. All these great faces here and all these folks wanting to get in. It's kind of makes me feel good. So let's get started like we normally do. Short period of bell meditation. Please, wherever you are behind your avatar, get into a nice meditation posture. And as I ring the Ching bell here in Second Life, just want you to focus on the sound of the bell. The idea here is to get your deep listening going, get your focus and your concentration going today so we can all absorb some Dharma. Chances are you're going to get distracted. It happens to all of us. When it does, I want you to just gently remind yourself, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be listening to the bell. And just go back to doing that. And then at the end, there'll be a short pause. I'll do the 3 recitations and then we'll get on with the talk. All right, so nice meditation posture. We begin at the sound of the bell. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I have taken refuge in the Buddha. I have taken refuge in the Dharma. I have taken refuge in the Sangha. 3 pure precepts. Cease to do harm. Do only good. Do good for others. Bodhisattva vow. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to lead them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Swaha. So again, welcome everybody. Great to see you. It's Friday. It's a happy one. We're here at the Buddha Center. Glad you joined us. Today, the title of this talk is Falling Away of Practice. So, like we like to talk about here, talk about practice. Right? Talk about that a lot. All phenomena, as we know as Buddhists, in our studies, all phenomena, and our experience too, that all phenomena are subject to the arising and falling away, just like any other phenomena. And our Buddhist practice is a type of phenomenon. It happens that a person chooses the noble path, walks it for a ways, and then abandons it. Why might a practitioner allow their impatience or anger or intolerance or any of the other vexations and maras to re-arise and affect their practice? During meditation one morning, as I was sitting, this more appropriate view arose that this path doesn't lead so much to abandonment as it leads to a degradation of practice, a weakening, if you will, of practice. When a person chooses to take the vow of the three refuges, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. They have chosen to practice Buddhism, the middle way, or the middle path, if you will. With this vow, you have recognized that Buddha element is a part of you, and that you have willingly set out on a path to fully realize its nature. From that point, the middle path cannot be abandoned. However, it can be allowed to degrade or weaken into a shadow of what it must be in order to have any personal or social value. Indolence is the usual cause of our practice slowly degrading until it seems to just disappear from the body-mind. We'd really like to avoid this. Right? We work hard. This is not an easy path. And just to let it fade out of your life, it's kind of sad. Excuse me. But there is an antidote to indolence, and that's diligence. Diligence is the antidote to things like laziness, procrastination, and the arising of boredom and listlessness. And these are all the things that we can put into a package and say, this is indolence. And in those moments, when the thought arises, there isn't time to practice, you got to make the time. Sure, you can't really make any extra time, but you can set aside inconsequential activities, or at least activities that are at that moment inconsequential. Things like watching television or playing games or sitting around daydreaming. And instead, you could use that time better, right? Make a better choice. Example, using that time for meditation practice is one choice, but we can't meditate all the time. Because Buddhist practice isn't just about meditation, right? There's a lot of other stuff that we have to think about and contemplate and practice. Practice is also the actions of contemplating the choices that you've made and how you can make better choices. It is in choosing to do the chores that need to be done and doing them with a sense of vitality and purpose, like you like doing it. It is in the choosing to do the chores that are out there and that you see and that you need to do. It is choosing to help a stranger rather than ignore their need. It is in choosing to do volunteer work rather than just sitting on the couch and watching whatever show you're currently binging on. It is about making a better choice between indolence and diligence. You've got to learn to recognize the walls that can be created by the vexations that we experience in our lives. Vexations are also known in Buddhism as the three poisons. And I know you've heard these three before. They're put in many different lists. This one, they just happen to be in the three poisons list. That's desire, the kind of desire that leads to unnatural craving, hatred or aversion, and ignorance or delusion. These are the vexations that can build walls in front of our practice. Like, I want to practice, but I kind of desire to do this instead. Or, I want to practice, but man, I just really hate the idea of sitting for 30 minutes. Or, I'd really like to practice, but I don't know how. I'm ignorant of it. I haven't been shown anything yet. So you got to learn to recognize these walls that the vexations can throw up in front of us, so maybe you could build a doorway through them. Or maybe you can just make a nice ladder, climb over them. Vexations can be the cause of you taking the easy way out, rather than what is the effective way to stay on the path. And it is easy to think this: I am not very good at this whole middle path thing, so why keep trying? Why put myself through this effort and anxiety? It is more effective, though, to think I can do better on the middle path, because we can always make better choices. We can always do better. Even if it's just in little teeny ways, we can. We can improve our practice. We can improve our knowledge. It is much easier to listen to your inner critic when it tells you that you are wasting your time with this middle path stuff. Lots of other things you could be doing. So it's better to quiet your inner critic so you can use your time more effectively. It is easier to do something tomorrow, but it's more effective to do it now. Diligence chosen over indolence. Clinging to the notion of permanent self. Engaging in habitual reactivities, habits, and dispositions, even when the effects are found to be unwholesome. Clinging to fear of death, or acting on cravings and unnatural desires. These are the four maras that can also degrade practice of the middle path. Now, maras in this case are being used as a metaphor for unwholesome choices. Permanence is a delusion that will impede transformation because permanence doesn't allow transformation. Engaging in spontaneous, unwholesome, habitual reactivities or patterns of emotional reactions can fall away only if you are diligent in your practice of wholesome habits and dispositions so that they can become spontaneous. And just a reminder, spontaneous, that means you've worked so hard at developing generosity or whatever it is. You've worked so hard at doing it that it's just become how you are. You don't even think about it anymore. It's kind of like I was raised by a Southern father and a Canadian mother, so being respectful and being polite was drilled into me from a very early age. So they became spontaneous. That's what we're talking about here. So fearing the death of yourself or others, something that is inevitable and a natural end to this life, will cloud the body-mind with that fear, leaving the body-mind less able to view clearly the benefits that you're getting from practice. Craving, a major cause of suffering and discontent and unsatisfactoriness, or dukkha, if you will. It causes degrading of practice, as well as just acting on those cravings, right? There's two different stages. You can have the craving, that can kind of degrade your practice because you think about what you want, but then acting on that craving also degrades practice, right? Because it takes you away from that path. Diligence in being rigorously self-honest about the transformations that happen to you each moment, in striving to recognize unwholesome habits and dispositions, and then realizing ways to transform them, In coming to terms with the inevitability of death and preparing for it, both mentally and physically, and in eliminating craving and unnatural desires, these are antidotes to indolence and to the degradation of practice. Again, it's diligence chosen over indolence. Through diligence, you can also overcome the prison of the skandhas. It's maybe a term you've heard before. The skandhas are also known as the aggregates, and they are the constituents of a person that some might point to one of them or all of them and say, hey, this proves the permanency of the self. The skandhas, their form, feeling, perception, causal conditioning, and consciousness. Through diligence of study and practice, you come to realize that form is not permanent, that sensations and feelings, they're not permanent. Perceptions and worldview, they're not permanent. That you can better choose which causal factors you allow to cause transformations within you. And that what is stored in the consciousness, again, is not permanent. Seeing the Dharma of the not-self, the ever-transforming self, will allow degradation of practice to fall away and be replaced by the arising of a stronger commitment to practice. Earlier on, I said that engaging in spontaneous, unwholesome, habitual reactivities or patterns of emotional reaction will degrade practice, and that is certainly a reality. That's definitely some Dharma. But I've realized that the ideal of spontaneous needed that clarification that I gave you earlier. So spontaneous as a goal was offered as a point in practice when wholesome habits and dispositions are engaged without having to think about them. Example, hatred. You may have worked diligently to set aside hatred of a person, a place, or a thing. You've erased hate from your vocabulary and from your thinking. It has become a spontaneous aspect of how you are in each moment. You just don't hate. You just don't have hatred in you anymore. It has been replaced by loving kindness and compassion. Yay! That's a good thing. But then in a moment, right, that next moment, you encounter a person, a place, or a thing, and hatred re-arises. Here it comes. Loving kindness and compassion, they seem to just fall away. What had been a wholesome, spontaneous way of interacting and interconnecting with the world around you is suddenly replaced by this unwholesome reaction that was brought on by an unwholesome emotion. You might think that you've worked really hard to eliminate hate. And there it is again. That you just can't get rid of it permanently. Well, shouldn't be a surprise that even spontaneity of thought and action is not permanent. This can be the cause of a degradation of your practice if you accept that hate and say, well, I guess I failed. I'm hating again, so I'm going to give up. Or any other of the unwholesome habitual reactivities that you might deal with. Whether loving kindness and compassion were spontaneous for a moment or for a decade, it was a wholesome, positive way of being and proof to you that those dispositions are sustainable in the long term, but they are never permanent. As well as being diligent in developing spontaneity, you must be as diligent when it must be redeveloped. So we're always being mindful that these things can arise again. So we can be spontaneous up to a point, but then that's not permanent either. So again, we have to choose diligence over indolence and be diligent about the things that you become spontaneous with. And we all have them. Wholesome and unwholesome. A craving for permanence, this will really degrade your practice. It's kind of why we call it practice. We don't call it success. It's if any aspect of the middle path that you practice could become permanent, that would kind of disprove 2,600 plus or minus years of Buddhist experiences with causality and interdependence. It would just blow that right out of the water. So we avoid that craving for permanence. We're diligent in avoiding that craving for permanence. The Buddha in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the first turning of the Dharma wheel, offers a guide to fully realizing the indolence, the vexations, the cravings, the maras, and the skandhas that can degrade your sense of the value of a Buddhist practice. It is the Eightfold Path, the middle path. It is a path of practice that leads toward the development of a wholesome personal character, a focused body-mind, and to the alleviation of suffering, unsatisfactoriness, discontent, and anguish. Engaging appropriate view and intent, you develop the wisdom to make better choices dependent on each unique situation you encounter. To develop a wholesome personal character that leads to an effective social self, you practice appropriate speech and action and livelihood in all situations. And appropriate effort, mindfulness, and concentration are developed first as meditative practices with the view of their moment-to-moment value in life and with the intent to engage them so that choices you make are based in the Dharma, in reality. It's all about choice. You can choose indolence or you can choose diligence. Whatever your choice, it will have a dramatic causal effect on all moments to follow in your life and in the lives of others, by the way. So in the end, it is your choice. It is your responsibility. Let's take this to the pandemic as we've been doing with each talk. Look, a lot of us are stuck at home. Some of us are stuck at home and we're not used to it. Me, I'm kind of used to it, but I know lots of folks that aren't. Indolence can become that monster, and that monster maybe hiding under the bed that keeps coming out and attacking, because you're going to start to get bored, right? You're going to start to let some desires get into your head because you haven't been able to do things maybe for a while. This gives us another great opportunity for a Buddhist practice to work our way on our path away from that indolence that might hit us, that laziness, that procrastination. But I want to point out there's another aspect of indolence or ignorance that I spoke about earlier, is it is lazy not to do the basic things to protect yourself and others. Right? It's just lazy not to wear a mask. It's just lazy not to maintain physical distancing right now. By being diligent, by making sure that we follow whatever these rules are so we can all come out of this, we have to make the choice to do what is right both for ourselves and others. Don't let that indolence make you lazy in that regard. Don't let it create that fog in front of your vision where you're not getting that clear view anymore.